What's the most disgusting thing you've seen someone do with no shame? Story 1. It was my uncle's wedding day, and his wife was just getting ready to walk down the aisle. One of the guests in the wife's family decided to stand up and show off his Johnson. There were kids there, and he got kicked out trying to play it off as a joke. Story 2. First that comes to mind, working at a casino, there was this one lady who smoked so much she complained the servers weren't bringing her new ashtrays often enough. Started ashing on her tongue. One time, I watched her put out a cigarette butt on the machine, then actually eat it. Story 3. At my old job, we used to have units and a bathroom in the office on the units, generally used by everyone except one guy for just number 1. We would cover if someone had to go off unit for number 2, no problem, and this was an unwritten rule. But there was this one evening shifter who would basically say, screw all of us. He was probably 5'9", pushing 400 pounds. I think he would purposely go in and blow it up, and every time would come out leaving feces on the toilet seat. Every single time we had to go and tell him to go and clean the bathroom because he left it dirty. He would shrug it off until the manager of the unit went in and saw it and had to tell him. Never seen a healthcare worker so disgusting. At 400 pounds, it's a miracle that he didn't also just flat out break the porcelain throne. I'm sure those things have a weight limit before they start cracking. When what a move to just act like it's no big deal. Probably thinking that because people are afraid to fat shame him, that he can get away with it. I feel like if that continues, that is 100% a fireable offense. I'm sure they can hire someone who does not desecrate a restroom that way. Story 4. And decided to hire him, but first I wanted to see how he drove, so I suggested lunch. And I'd buy. Off we went and took his truck. Kept it reasonably clean, drove proficiently, and decent table manners. Good representative for the company if it ever came to it. So I paid and we piled back into his truck, being me, foreman, and another guy. As we were getting back, on a 2-lane road, country-ish, he swerved expressively to hit an armadillo and laughed like a hyena. We got back, my foreman glanced my way, and I shook my head imperceptibly. He nodded in agreement. So we told the guy we had a couple more people to interview. We didn't, and that was that. Occasionally, still think back and wonder, why on earth? An inoffensive critter, and he went out of his way to kill it. Not our kind of people. Story 5. I was the only woman in an otherwise all-male office, and we had one bathroom. We all took turns cleaning it, and I was fine doing my part. Until we figured out that the reason it always smelled bad was because a 60-year-old man was urinating on the floor. There was a drain, and not the toilet. My boss said something to him, and he shrugged and said, "My wife cleans up after me at home." He was told his wife doesn't work here, but it didn't matter, and he kept doing it. From then on, I refused to use that bathroom and started going down the street to the gas station every time I needed to go. Since I wasn't using it, I didn't have to help keep it clean, and there was no way I was going to help keep this bathroom clean when a grown man was literally peeing on the floor. Story 6. Visiting San Francisco for the first time in my life. We were walking down a busy, crowded street just outside of the city center when I saw a homeless dude sneak into an open stairwell to pinch one off in the corner. I didn't mean to stare, I just couldn't help it. Well, homie caught me looking, made eye contact, smiled, then wiped with his bare hand and flicked the leavings in my direction before wiping the rest off in his hair. Thanks, San Francisco. I hardly knew you. I have not been to San Francisco personally, but from what I've heard, this sounds about par for the course. Between the rampant homelessness, drug issues, and just overall dirty streets, I bet you can see some seriously messed up stuff there. At least this person has checked that box and be like, well, never coming back to this city. Anyone in the comments from San Francisco who can confirm if it's that bad? Story 7. I've seen so many disgusting things in life, but one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen in public was a man digging into his already exposed butt crack and swiping it like it was a credit card and taking a big whiff. The kind of whiff the Snuggle Bear from the Snuggle fabric softener commercial would take when the towels came out of the dryer. I and several other people glared in disgust, but he could not be bothered. Story 8. Dipped their pecker into a girl's drink while she was in the bathroom. It was my first week in a new job, and this chick used to work there before me. It was a staff night out, and she was along for the ride since it had been organized while she was still there. She was a bit of a jerk, I'll be honest, but still, that's no excuse. We started off in our pub, the place we all worked, and we were all about to head out when she went to the bathroom. She had put down her glass of white wine, and one of the regulars had been invited along, pulls out his willy, and just dunks it right in. Shakes it off, puts the glass back down, and then zips up. Everyone laughs. And it's mostly women working there, and they still all laughed at this. The chick came back up the stairs, picked up her drink, and that's when I became the arsehole. I took the drink out of her hand and poured it down the sink. No one was happy. Not the chick whose drink I poured, and not any of the jerks I work with who thought it was fine to do that to somebody. Jerk or not, you don't do that. Story 9. Back when I was a lot younger, maybe 19, I was at a party and some guys wanted to play a drinking game. Except it wasn't really much of a game, we just had to take a shot whenever someone else did. So my dumb self played this game and got really wasted, and apparently threw up and passed out. I had a ride to the party, but they also passed out. Next day, I woke up on the couch with a vomit bucket next to me, and my pants slightly pulled down, and I was confused and felt like crap. I had a guy come up to me and tell me that some guy tried to feel me up, take my pants off while I was passed out, and that the drinking game was actually them making the girls drink shots of vodka while they drank shots of water, so the girls would get wasted and then they could take advantage of them. He said some of the others there who didn't know about the game saw it happening and stopped them, but didn't dare to try to pull my pants back up. I felt so violated and freaked out and didn't realize how naive I was and that some people are just truly gross. Well, I guess technically I didn't see this. I feel really bad for this girl who had to go through this. I personally hated parties like that myself because it's such a temporary feeling of fun, followed by lasting pain and misery. And as this story sort of demonstrates, they can be very dangerous too. I hope this girl thinks twice about going to this kind of party again, because guys can be pigs and pull some stupid stuff. Very fortunate that there was a friend looking out for her too and holding these guys accountable. Story 10. In college, I lived on a hill behind one of the more popular bars in town. Thursday nights, they did karaoke. My roommate had introduced me to a guy he went to camp with the previous summer. Now, this guy was classic college hippie dirty, didn't shower, even after spending an entire summer in the American South, no less, sleeping outside, would fart at any given moment, participated in guerrilla gardening, the whole 9 yards. Well, this guy wasn't much of a drinker, preferring to sip on ciders. My roommate and I went to the bar, and then he told me that Garbage Boy was coming. I thought, well, I better go ahead and get a bucket of beers in me so I don't have to worry about this clown embarrassing me. We're sitting right next to the DJ booth. Garbage Boy has had a couple of ciders. I'm comfortably toasty thanks to approximately 1.5 buckets of beer, and my roommate and Garbage Boy get up to sing their song. When they come back, the DJ comes over to tell them good job or some nonsense like that and knocks Garbage Boy's cider over. The DJ quickly apologizes and retreats. Normally in this kind of situation, one would expect a person to do one of two things: clean up or throw hands. Garbage Boy chooses option C. Now option C is to grab some napkins or towels and mop up the spilled cider from the table, wring them out into his glass, and then drink the cider as if it didn't just wash over the 8th dirtiest table in town. Story 11. I've worked in the oil field most of my life. On a drilling rig, there are 4 crews. The crews are split in 4 7-days on crew and the off 7 days crew. When we move the rig, both crews' morning tower and evening tower join together to disassemble the rig and move to the new pad and then reassemble the rig. The whole bunch on the evening crew was wild, drank a lot, and partied a lot. And one of the guys, we'll call him Dan, he was always hard up for money and liked his booze. The safety man walked by with his dog, and the dog stopped to take a crap. One of the guys joked and said, "Dan, I bet you won't eat that for $20. Still steaming, he picked it up, and in one swallow, he downed the dog turd. Story 12. Oh my God. I hope people see this because, man, do I have one for you. I used to work at an animal shelter, and a lot of dogs would come in covered in ticks, and once they got all engorged and disgusting, they would fall off. It was pretty common that we would accidentally step on them when they fell on the floor, and they would literally explode blood. Anyway, we had this volunteer come in, and she was helping me clean the kennels. We both noticed a red spot on the floor, but it was kind of a congealed looking, almost like jelly. Didn't register in my brain right away what it was. The volunteer, I swear to you, bent down, wiped a finger on the spot, and licked it off her finger, right off the dirty kennel floor. She's totally casual about it and looks at me and goes, "Huh, well, it doesn't taste bad." I was flabbergasted, and then felt like throwing up when about 5 minutes later the realization kicked in. She just put tick blood in her mouth. I never told her. Now at this point, what would even be the point in telling her anyway? The damage is done, and that girl now has ingested whatever disease or God knows what into her body. You might want to let her know if she suddenly tells you one day that she's been seeing a doctor and they are concerned. It might help steer them in the right direction. What would compel someone to lick anything off a floor? Like not just a kennel floor, like any floor ever in the history of floors. No good can come from this. Story 13. One of my employees was getting a divorce. The ex-wife changed throughout the years and became really mean. They had a dog together and he loved it. They agreed that he would keep the dog. 4 weeks later, she says she misses the dog and would like to spend a few days with it. She asked to get the dog for a week starting Sunday, and he accepts. Monday, middle of the day, my employee received a text from her. It was a selfie of her, all smiles, and the dog dead. She had the dog euthanized to hurt his ex, my employee. Note that the dog was 4 years old, healthy, and really well behaved. Story 14. When I worked in disability, I had an interview with a gentleman with a moderate bordering on profound intellectual disability. Late 40s, but the brain of a 2-year-old more or less. He had a support worker, family member, and occupational therapist with him to help him answer questions. The meeting took about 2 hours, and he was very restless towards the end. The other people in the room had to duck out quickly to discuss something privately and left myself and old mate in the room together. He stared at me for like 5 minutes, lifted himself off his seat, took my pen, shoved his hand down his pants, and gently sat on the pen and groaned. Eyes rolled back in the head. And then he, concluded the meeting. When the family member came back a few moments later, I told them what had happened, and they had to get him into the first aid room and retract it. They didn't offer to return my pen. I wasn't bothered by this. Still the biggest power move I've ever seen. Story 15. For like 2 weeks straight, a kid in elementary school would go into the bathroom and draw big flowers on the wall with poop. My friend and I happened to discover the first masterpiece, and there was also a turd sitting on the wall that separates the stall from the urinals. Never did look in the stall, and I'm glad we didn't. We went and told our teacher, and at first they didn't believe us, but they did soon enough. After the first incident during breaks and lunch, the school had a staff member basically watch everyone go to the bathroom, but somehow, some way, the kid did it 2 more times. I don't know if they ever caught the kid, but they had the teachers preaching to us about cleanliness and bathroom etiquette for weeks. Anyways, kids are gross, and I truly hope I wasn't friends with whoever was responsible. Story 16. I know this one girl whose dad had cancer. Her whole family was upset, rightfully so, and every time the ambulance had to go to their place, she'd get overly excited at the fact that her dad had to go to the hospital. I'm not talking about a little kid, but a fully self-aware 17-year-old girl. She couldn't wait until her father passed to make "I have no dad" jokes. When he did eventually pass away, she wore Hot Topic knee-high boots to his funeral, and later on went to a multi-purpose indoor park with her friends to go go-karting. She brings up her father's death any chance the attention isn't on her and uses it as an excuse to act the way that she does in relationships. He passed away 2 years ago, and she still makes those jokes to this day. Holy crap, that is one horrible human being. I mean, I don't want to pass judgment completely since I don't know all the facts. It's possible the dad was a terrible person and was abusive or something, so the daughter was just counting down the days till he died. But if that's not the case, then this is just some sick and selfish behavior. She strikes me as someone who is not self-aware enough to realize that no one really wants to hang out with her or be her friend. Probably because she won't shut up about her deceased father. We get it. Everybody dies at some point. Story 17. Managing a bar, I walk out back for a smoke. Look down the alley and see a woman come out of the back door, hike up her skirt, and piss all over the floor and back door. She then walked straight back into her friend's party and tried to order another drink. I went back in, stepping awkwardly to avoid the puddles she left, and saw that she left wet tracks right back to her table. One of the wildest conversations I've ever had, telling her and her friends they needed to pay the bill and get the heck out. Story 18. A couple who were talking to me at a party. They seemed pretty bogan. The guy was telling me a story about when he knew she was the one. He had pulled down his pants to fart on the cat, but he actually sharted by accident and shat on the cat and in the hallway. She just laughed and began cleaning it up. They were beaming like this was a cute, funny story. But when they saw my horrified face, the dude got really defensive and started talking about how when you get older, you don't have the same muscle control and can't help it. Story 19. My roommate clogged the toilet and panicked. He collected it in a plastic bag and heard me come into the apartment. He shut the bathroom door and started cramming his feces down the bathtub drain. Now, this didn't work. He struggled with trying to rinse it down with hot water, and after washing the tub a bit, he landed on pouring an entire bottle of cologne down the tub drain. The entire apartment reeked of crap and cologne for weeks. He never once showed an ounce of shame or remorse after exiting the bathroom. Story 20. One time when I was little, probably 8 or 9, and on a road trip with my family, my teenage brother was laughing with his hand over his mouth for a while. I thought maybe something was really funny, but he was actually just spitting in his hand the entire time, and once he built up enough spit, he proceeded to hit me in the face with a fat handful of smoke-scented saliva. Yeah, I hope this person punched their brother in the kidney or the walnuts for this. Very, very rude to say the least. This seems like the standard formula for a family road trip. It's only a matter of time before the boredom hits hard and you revert to slapping your sibling with your saliva. Say that 10 times fast. Story 21. I have no shame, and on reflection, it was fair game. An ex of mine treated me like absolute crap, and I'm not sure why I put up with it. Maybe young and dumb, I suppose. Anyway, whilst I was on top and he was up the old dirt road, he wanted to finish in there. I told him it wasn't the best idea, as it could get messy because I had not cleaned myself beforehand. But he didn't listen and forced me to continue, so I thought F you, and he finished, and I gave it a minute before getting off. As I did, I made sure every last bit of butt milkshake came out and all over his stomach, right down to his belly button. He laid there horrified and started wailing about baby wipes and tissues. I chucked him what he needed, he got dressed, and I told him, all you have to do is treat me like dirt, so I matched and raised you. Get out and don't come back. He never did. Story 22. One of my first jobs was an agency waiter. I got booked to jobs as relief staff to cover vacancies. And one job I had was at a football stadium looking after the boxes. Now, the people in them get a meal before the game. The boxes are high up, so you need to be accessed by an elevator as the kitchen is downstairs. Me and this girl go to clear plates from one of the boxes, and there's a bunch of stuff like half-eaten food left over. We scrape it all into a couple of plates and stack the rest on a cart. As soon as we get into the elevator and the door closes, this girl just starts grabbing handfuls of the half-eaten leftovers and starts stuffing her face. I asked her what she was doing, and she just said, "What? It's still good to go," and carried on, ignoring my visible disgust at what she was doing. This isn't like a leftover bowl of fries that had gone untouched or something. This is stuff that had been pushed around, had bites taken out of it, and was covered in whatever sauces they added to their plates. It was 8 or 9 people's collective leftovers smushed together onto 1 or 2 plates. It was revolting. She had no shame about what she was doing. Maybe that is a testament as to how good the catering tastes. If they were serving lobster or crab cakes, I could totally see myself taking a moment to at least consider the opportunity. And say what you will, but this woman is a survivor and will probably lead millions when the zombies start to take over. We also don't know what this person's home life was like, and maybe they don't eat very well at home or just love being really frugal. Story 23. I was at a wedding, it was during the buffet meal, and the woman in line behind me was dipping her fingers in each individual food item as she put it on her plate. As in, food goes on her plate, her finger goes in the food on her plate, tastes the food by licking it off her finger, then gets more food from the next serving dish using the hand that she just licked. I could hear her smacking her lips at each food item. I told the catering staff they needed to replace all the serveware immediately. They saw it, they did, and I'm so glad I was in front of her. Oh, and by the way, this was not pre-COVID. This was last September.